Welcome on back, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules podcast. This is episode 37. This is our round 16 review of 2024 AFL season. Welcome on back. Big weekend of football. Some teams on the fringe get wins. Some teams up towards the top cop losses. So, massive week of changes, I guess, in the football season. But before we jump into all of the matches from round 16, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as always. Also, check out all of my social medias. We got Twitter /X, we got Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And then, of course, this podcast goes out on YouTube and Spotify twice a week. So go check it all out. Plenty of content, plenty of football content out there. So, yeah, check it all out. We'll start off here with round 16, game number 1. It was Friday night football. As always, the stats on the screen are from pre-game. But yeah, we had Brisbane hosting Melbourne up at the Gabba Friday night, and I don't think this game really went as too many people expected. Melbourne obviously went into it massive underdogs. Their form had not been great. But they came out, and to be honest, they looked like they were going to steal the victory. They led by 4 goals, I believe, at one stage. They were still comfortably up halfway through the final quarter, but they just couldn't quite get the job done. Brisbane finished off well and got the win. Melbourne set it up in the second quarter. They kicked 8 goals. Nearly was enough, not quite. The big issue out of that, though, is they only kicked 3 goals in the rest of the game. So the other 3 quarters, they really just couldn't score, which has been their issue all year, not just one quarter. But like across the last 8 weeks, really, they've really struggled to score. And you take out the second quarter, and that was the case again. Another worrying sign is 2 weeks in a row they've failed to kick a goal. So that's it's hard to win games if you're not kicking goals in the final quarter, but that's what happened here again. Melbourne won the clearances 40-34, so +6. A little bit surprising, really, that Brisbane are a decent clearance team. Melbourne have really kind of struggled all year at clearances, but they got the win in that regard. Bit surprising. Most of that was done in centre clearances. They won the centre clearances by 7. Which is probably Brisbane's worst form of clearances, to be honest. But still, a little bit surprised that, Demons won that area of the game. Brisbane's contested football was down on their usual performance. So maybe that's a reason why they weren't quite at their usual standards and quite in this game. But they ended up winning, so that's all that matters. Brisbane dominated the turnover game, which once again goes completely against what we kind of expected. Melbourne play their turnover game pretty well. Brisbane kind of struggle in that area, but Brisbane were +13 here, which is their best performance of the year in turnovers. Somehow, somewhere, teams need to work out how to stop Brisbane's uncontested /mark game. They averaged 31 marks more than their opposition, and this was another game where they absolutely just dominated the uncontested possession. It was always going to kind of be that way. Brisbane obviously play that way a lot. Melbourne really struggle at stopping teams in regards to just having a lot of loose and uncontested football. So it was always going to be an issue for Melbourne, but I think going forward, teams coming up against Brisbane really need to put a focus on not letting them have that uncontested football, because it just eventually will take its toll on you, and they'll cut you up eventually. Some of the best players out there, Dunkley was huge. He had 32 disposals, 11 score involvements. Zorko, 28 touches, was good. Viney was probably Melbourne's best. He had 26 touches, 2 goal assists, and 10 score involvements, so he was very good as well. Some other good players, Ryan Lester had 12 intercepts, and Pickett for Melbourne kicked 5 goals, which was by far the best of anybody on the field. But yeah, Melbourne, their season's struggling, continually getting worse. They dropped to 12th on the ladder, which is a worrying sign for them. They're only half a game outside the 8, but only one win out of the last 4 weeks, and that was a very narrow win over North Melbourne, so their form's not great. Meanwhile, Brisbane, they jump into the 8 for the first time this year. Solid win. They're only half a game inside, and there's 5 teams half a game behind them, so they're not safe, but they've won their last 4. They're in some really good form. If you haven't seen my ladder prediction video from last week, I did have Brisbane coming top 4. So, I mean, they're only a win outside 3rd right now, so they're flying along. They've turned their season right around, and yeah, we'll see where that takes us, but they definitely are looking good at the moment. Next game of the round was Saturday afternoon football. We had North Melbourne hosting the Doggies at Marvel. When I say hosting, both teams obviously live at Marvel most weeks. What to say about this game? Bulldogs probably underperformed, let's be honest. They only won it by 17 points, kicking 11-77 to North Melbourne's 9-6-60. North were good. Were they great? Oh, they were okay. Their last probably 4 or 5 games have been a lot more improved on what they had been showing, so positive signs, I guess, for North Melbourne. Bulldogs, they got the job done. It's what they needed. Should they have won by more? Probably. But at the end of the day, they got the 4 points, and that's kind of what they needed out of this one. They dominated the clearance game, did the Doggies. 40-28, so plus 12. Most of that done in stoppage clearances, plus 10. North are actually a pretty good clearance team, so Doggies are slightly better, but North's actually pretty good usually, so that was a good area for the Doggies to win this week. Somehow, somewhere, North Melbourne's season really turned about 4 or 5 weeks ago. We've looked at it before in, I think, their mid-season review maybe, that they've really turned their contested football around. Up until 5 weeks ago, they hadn't won contested footy once, whereas they've now won it 5 weeks in a row. So I think that's a really positive sign for them going forward. Obviously, they're not winning many games, but they're showing signs that they are developing as a team. Obviously, they're still ranked 17th in contested possession coming into this game, but they won it once again against a team that is definitely coming into this game probably better at contested football. So really, really good sign there for North Melbourne. Another good sign is that this was also the first time this year that I've won the turnover game. So they had less turnovers than the Bulldogs by 5. Obviously, they were ranked 18 coming into this in that area. Bulldogs, who came into this game ranked 7th, looking good in that area, just got beaten in that area somehow. But Bulldogs still won the match, so it's not a major concern for them. But I think the thing we take from it is positive signs for North Melbourne that they are really starting to show development and improving their game. Dogs were 5 goals up at 3/4 time, only ended up winning by 17 points, so a solid finish by North Melbourne. The Doggies dominated territory battle throughout most of the game. Ended up plus 15 inside 50s, so pretty big difference in that regard. And as we said, they smashed the clearances by 12. Some of the best players, Bont, I think, was clearly the best player. He had a few turnovers, but he had 35 disposals, 11 clearances. He had 647 metres gained, and he was just huge all day long for them, which he went in with under an injury cloud, so great performance from him. Next best couple players were probably North Melbourne players. Tristan Xerri continued his fine form. He's pushing towards potentially not being in contention for an All-Australian nod. I don't think he's quite there yet, but he's certainly heading towards the discussion at least. He had 20 disposals at a goal. He was very good. Harry Sheasel, I think he also played a very good game. He had 27 touches and a goal as well. So where does that leave these two teams? North Melbourne obviously still sitting last on the ladder, a game and not percentage behind Richmond. They've actually passed Richmond's percentage, which is a good effort from them, but they've got a long way to go at 1-14. Bulldogs, this sits them at 9th on the ladder, half a game behind Brisbane. Obviously their percentage is really, really good, so if they're to win and Port Adelaide, Collingwood, Geelong, any one of those lose, they will jump straight above them because their percentage is just really, really, really good. It's currently the third highest percentage in the AFL, behind Sydney and Brisbane. So Bulldogs, positive signs. They win the game. They keep going. North Melbourne, anything they do for the rest of the year is obviously just development and for next year, I guess. And the signs are improving for them, in my opinion. The other Saturday afternoon game was the top of the ladder Sydney Swans versus the fifth of the ladder Fremantle Dockers, and it was at the SCG, and Fremantle stole this one. When I say steal, I don't mean they stole it like they shouldn't have won or anything, but an upset nonetheless. Fremantle were playing good football, but I don't think too many people expected that they would win this. I thought they'd be competitive. This is another team I had finishing in my top 4 last week's ladder prediction video, and that's been proven that even more likely now. Obviously they're not home into the top 4, but very positive result for them nonetheless. They did it in the first quarter, blew them away, kicked 7 goals in that opening quarter, and the opening quarters are starting to be a big issue for Sydney. They've only won 2 of their last 8 first quarters. They need to find a way to start games better, because it is going to be an issue. When you come to crunch time, you don't want to be giving 5-goal leads into the first quarter. You don't want to be giving any leads into the first quarter, but certainly not 5+ goals like they have been. So their 10-game winning streak is over. They hadn't lost in April, May, and they got to the second last day of June before they did lose. So nearly 3 full months of not losing matches. But it comes to an end. It always was going to at some point. And Fremantle will be stoked that it was them that did it. They're still 2 games clear plus percentage on top Sydney, so no concerns in that regard for them. They created plenty of chances. They just didn't take them. They kicked 14-14, whereas Fremantle were 15-9, so that suggests that they didn't take their chances. Inside 50s were 54-54. The game across the board was very even in many regards. Sydney created the chances, they just couldn't score. They had a shot after the siren to win it. Obviously a point would have drawn from just outside 50, but no score was scored. So Fremantle get the 1-point victory. Clearances were dominated by Fremantle, which we kind of expect, obviously. Not that Sydney are a bad team at clearances, but Fremantle are by far and away the best team in the competition at clearances. Be it centre clearance, stoppage clearance, it doesn't matter. Fremantle are really good. However, Sydney did win centre clearances here, which is again another positive sign. If you've been tuning in over the last few weeks, we've mentioned how Sydney have really started to win the contested clearances a bit more. Up until about 3 or 4 weeks ago, they were definitely in the negatives, and they've really started to win that. I think that might be 3 or 4 weeks in a row that they've won the centre clearances now, so positive sign there. But overall, Fremantle won that area of the game and set themselves up, I guess, with that. Freo jump into 3rd on the ladder. They controlled the turnover game here, which I think was probably one of the key areas to... No, they didn't. They didn't control the turnover game, sorry. I don't know what language or what I'm speaking. They got smashed in the turnover game, which is not that unexpected. Neither team really do well in it. But here was probably one of the worst performances from Fremantle in that regard all year. They obviously won clearances, so mainly stoppage clearances, so they were getting plenty of the ball. They turned it over a lot, which is a concern, but nothing too major there, really. They dominated the marks, plus 26, so they were just controlling the ball a lot. And yeah, that's kind of where the game was won and lost, I guess. Nothing too exciting in the rest of the stats. So as we mentioned, Sydney still sit top of the ladder, get 2 games clear. Certainly no worries for them just at the moment. Fremantle, they jump into third on the ladder. Obviously they've had the draw, so their percentage isn't a huge concern. However, they are now equal with Essendon on wins and only 1 win ahead of Brisbane, who also have all had a draw. So their percentage may come into play. They're clearly ahead of Essendon percentage-wise, but they're quite a comfortable margin behind Brisbane. So we'll see how that plays out. But they're still a fair way behind Carlton on the ladder. What are they? 2.5 wins behind? No, 1.5 wins behind, sorry. I definitely know math. But yeah, so they're 1.5 games out of second. So that's still cruising along. That is a massive win for them, though. Obviously, really cements them as a chance for definitely for finals, but definitely for top 4 as well. It'll be interesting to see how their next month goes. They've got Richmond next week, so a huge opportunity to win another one and really push towards the final 6 to 8 weeks of football in a really strong position. Next game up was up on the Gold Coast. We had Gold Coast hosting Collingwood, and to surprise nobody, Gold Coast won at home. They still haven't lost a home match this year. Their record up there is incredible, and it just keeps continuing. They won this one 14-17, 101 to Collingwood 13-12, 90. So 11-point win. I think maybe 2 home games in a row that they've won by 11 points or thereabouts. They beat Essendon by about that a few weeks back. Fremantle at home, they're just a really good football team. They probably won it in the second quarter, if we're being honest. They kicked 4 goals to Collingwood's 1. That was probably the difference. They were probably the better team in the third quarter. They were probably maybe even the better team in the fourth. Collingwood created chances and just didn't take them. At one point, Collingwood kicked 6 goals in a row, I think, to take the lead when Kruger kicked one. But Gold Coast instantly responded and kicked 2 goals in the next probably 2 minutes just to snatch the game back and win by 11 points. Gold Coast dominated possession here. They dominated both contested and uncontested possession. It was their best game in terms of turnovers for the year. Outstanding in that regard, which is a massive effort because Collingwood are the number 1 team in terms of that. But Gold Coast really just performed very well in that area. They were plus 18 in inside 50s, so they showed a lot of good stuff, as they usually do in home matches. Collingwood, they almost pulled off another comeback. As we said, they kicked 6 in a row from late in the third quarter through to about 5 minutes to go in the game, and it looked like they were going to steal it. Didn't quite get there, but they did take the lead, and then just Gold Coast too strong in those final few minutes to kick 2 goals and get the game back. As we mentioned, Gold Coast's best game in the turnover front. It was also Collingwood's worst game in the turnover front this week. So some obvious signs where the game went wrong, I guess. Collingwood's disposal efficiency is always pretty terrible, and today was no different to that. They struggled a lot in that regard, but overall they just got beaten in a lot of key areas. As always, Collingwood were really good at tackle game, and a bit of individual brilliance really kept them in it, I guess. They certainly probably were outplayed in many regards, but the likes of Nick Dacos and De Goey really got it going in the last quarter and nearly got them over the line, but not quite. Once again, the forward efficiency from Collingwood was outstanding. They're one of the better teams in the competition in that regard, and this was no different for them. So good in that regard. Defensive efficiency maybe not quite as high as always, but still a good performance. Best players, Anderson had 39 touches, 7 intercepts and 8 score involvements, so he was outstanding. As we mentioned, Nick Dacos was huge. He had 32 disposals, 2 goals, 2 goal assists, including a goal in that last quarter that really got Collingwood going. It was their third last goal, got them within about 11 points or so. Was a really good one. De Goey also kicked a goal late in, or halfway through the last quarter. He had 21 disposals, 2 goals, 11 score involvements, and Ainsworth was really good. He had 28 touches and 2 goals himself. So where does that put both these teams? Gold Coast continue to win at home. As I've mentioned before, they do have to start winning some away games before we can count them as a chance for finals. But they do play North Melbourne away this week, so this will be their chance. They're going to have to win probably a couple away games and just keep winning home games to be a chance to make finals. And this is their chance for their first away win. If they can't win this week, I think you can put a pin in them, but I would expect that they will go down to Marvel and get the win. I think it's at Marvel. Might not be, but if it is, I would still expect them to win no matter where it is. It could be in Hobart, but I don't know. For Collingwood, this drops them down to 6th on the ladder. Obviously not a great result for them here. They got the Bombers coming up this weekend, so a massive game coming up for them. But 6th on the ladder, it's not too concerning. Obviously, they're only half a game behind 3rd, but also they're only 1 game inside the 8. Obviously, if the Doggies catch up to them, they'll go straight past them on percentage. A similar percentage to Gold Coast and GWS, who are 10th and 11th, obviously 1 game ahead of them, and comfortably ahead of Melbourne and Hawthorn on percentage at the moment, although Hawthorn's percentage is rapidly rising, as we will get to shortly. We then go on to Saturday night football. First of those was Adelaide hosting GWS at the Adelaide Oval. Crows win it 13-16-94 to GWS's 12-6-78. GWS, they're struggling. They're dropping down the ladder very quickly, and games like this do not help. Adelaide, who just really haven't had a great season, just somehow turn these games on every now and then where they just win at home really well. Their record at home this year, it's quite abysmal, with this game included. This was only their 3rd win at Adelaide Oval this year. They're 3 wins, 5 losses and a draw, so they've lost a lot of games at home, and in the end that's going to be what costs them a chance for finals. I think they're too far back to really have any chance of making finals. Technically they could make it. I don't think they can though. But yeah, just too many losses at home has cost them. But they come out and they do a win like this, and it's like, well, where's that been the rest of the year? Their forward efficiency was great. It was 55.4% creating shots from inside 50s, which is their 2nd best result of the year so far. I think the best previously was against North Melbourne, so a really good sign in that regard. They also won the clearances, which they're not a great team at, but neither are GWS, but just a positive sign, and probably where the game was won. Coming into this, I did suggest that it would be interesting to see who won the clearance game, and it went Adelaide's way. They also won contested footy plus 19, so that's an area that I probably didn't see them winning. GWS obviously a very good contested football team, Adelaide not so good, so interesting in that. Once again, GWS, they stick around pretty competitively in the first quarter. They were even leading early in the second, but they just kind of got blown away from that point on. I mean, they only lost by 2.5 goals, 16 points, but they just didn't really feel like they were in the game that much. And it's kind of a trait of theirs at the moment is that they're competitive, really competitive in games for the first quarter and a half, and then they just kind of give it away a little bit, and they don't get smashed, but they just don't finish games off. I don't know what that is. One area of massive concern for GWS is their ability or inability, I guess, to score lately. Their last 5 matches they've finished in the 70s, which is not good enough. And if you go the 3 before that, they were all less than 70. Sorry. So their last 8 games, they haven't made it to 80. Which you're just not going to win enough games of football if you're not scoring above 80. You can win games, you can win some games, but you're just not going to consistently win games, and that's their biggest issue. Craziest stat to show this is their first 7 games, they scored 80 plus in every single one of them, averaging 107.3 points per game. Their last 8, they've all scored less than 80, and they averaged 69.3. That's 38 points different as an average from the first 7 weeks to the next 8. That is unbelievable. I don't know where their scoring has gone, but it is gone. They need to just, I don't know how they fix it, but they really need to just look at themselves, look at their game plan, look at everything, because whatever they're doing at the moment is not working, and they need to find a way to score. Because those first 7 weeks, they were top team. Everyone considered them at least a top 4 team, but maybe top 2 or 3. If you've watched the last 8 weeks, you'd have them in the bottom 4 just about, I reckon. They're just not able to score, and it's a massive concern. They lost the territory battle, which, I mean, that's not anything too unusual, but the fact that Adelaide won it is maybe unusual. Both teams pretty average at winning the inside 50 count, but nothing too bad. Defensively, their defensive efficiency for GWS has been really bad the last 2 weeks, and a massive cause for concern as well, in my opinion. They're just not really stopping teams from creating opportunities, and that needs to be fixed as well. So their problems aren't all offensive, they're also defensively as well. Best players, Rankin, he was huge. He had 27 disposals, 2 goals, a goal assist, 9 score involvements. Massive game from him. Toby Green was good. He had 16 touches, 3 goals, 2 goal assists. And just kind of showing what GWS have been doing lately, and maybe, especially lately. A lot of disposals, not a lot to say for it. Whitfield, 41 touches. I don't think he was overly damaging with any of that. He had his moments where he was good, but 41 touches and didn't create enough chances for GWS, in my opinion. Same can be kind of said for Tom Green. He had 38 touches. Once again, wasn't overly damaging. Neither of them were huge in score involvements. I think they had 5 score involvements between them from 79 touches. It's probably not enough. Well, I mean, it's definitely not enough. At the end of the day, they only scored 12 goals, 6, and those 2 were their biggest ball winners and just weren't contributing on the scoreboard. So they have issues. Can they turn it around? Yes. Their best is definitely good, but it's just not being shown at the moment. This leaves... Where does it leave these 2 teams? Adelaide, they move 14th. They jumped St Kilda this week. They're still, 3 games outside the 8? So they would need a miracle to get there from here. There's still 8 games left. Technically, they can, if they won them all, they could get to 13.5 wins, which would probably be enough for finals, but they would need to win every game going home, which I just don't see them doing. GWS, they dropped outside the 8. They were 6th last week and dropping, and now they've dropped all the way down to 10th. Only half a game outside the 8, but you wonder where their next win is. And if they get one, where's their second win? Because they're just not putting it together at the moment. And they come up against Carlton next week, which is a home game for GWS, but it's not going to be an easy one. Carlton are scoring very, very big at the moment, and GWS are not. So it's going to be hard to see how GWS win that one without turning their whole form line apart and around. So it'll be interesting, but yeah, they're sitting 10th on the ladder and things are not looking as great for them at the moment. There was another Saturday night game this week. Being 9 games, there was a lot of overlapping games, and this was another one. Geelong, Essendon, MCG, Saturday night. Big game for both teams coming in. Geelong trying to resuscitate their season, I guess. The Bombers just trying to continue on what they were doing. They were third on the ladder going in. Geelong won it comfortably though. They kicked 16-9, 105. The Bombers kicked 9 goals, 660. Comfortable win in the end, 45 points for the Cats. I certainly didn't expect them to win by that much. I'm not that surprised that they won. I did tip Essendon, but it's not blown my mind that Geelong have won this game. But to win by 45, I was a little bit surprised by, to be honest. A lot of Essendon supporters and even some neutral supporters are pointing out that the umpiring was a little bit average, cost Essendon a couple goals here and there, but they still lost by 45 points. If those decisions go the other way, yeah, maybe it changes things, but at the end of the day, some weeks you get the umpires, some weeks you don't. You can't hang your head on that. I don't think every team has probably lost a game this year from an umpiring decision. Essendon obviously won one against Adelaide in Adelaide. So things happen. You just got to kind of move on, and at the end of the day, Geelong get the 4 points and Essendon don't. Big win for the Cats, as we mentioned. Their form was not great. Hasn't been great since round 8, but a big win for them. They had a higher kick to handball ratio than usual for them, so I don't know if that's a major thing, if that's reason why they played better, but it certainly helped them in this game, so that was good. They were very good in the second half. Obviously, halftime was only 5 points in it. Essendon were winning by 5 points, so the second half just was completely dominated, I guess, by Geelong. They kicked 10 goals, 5 to 2 goals 3 in the second half. So comfortable second half from Geelong. They certainly looked better, which is definitely a positive after their fourth quarter fall apart last week against Carlton. Like, they were never really in the game against Carlton. They were always behind, chasing the tail a little bit, but Carlton blew them away in that last quarter. So it's good that they ran this one out, and just showed that I guess they do still have a little bit of life left in them this year. As we said, Essendon only kicked 2 goals 3 in the second half, which is not great. I think the biggest issue for Essendon at the moment is their forward efficiency. It's kind of been an issue for them all year. They do really well at inside 50 count, but their forward efficiency of teams that are competitive this year, they're the worst at it. Obviously, I've got them listed 13th there, but I'm pretty sure all the teams that are below them are the bottom 5 or 7 teams on the ladder. So it is a concern. They need to find a way to create these opportunities, because they do dominate possession. They do not dominate the field position for big chunks of games, and they just don't convert it into enough shots and enough good shots. So that's an area. They were +4 this week in inside 50s, and they lost by 45 points. So that just shows is just where they go wrong, I guess. Like, it's all good and well to win the inside 50 count, but if you can't put the scores on the board, then it's all for nothing, really. You shouldn't be winning the inside 50 count by 4 and losing the game by 45 points. It just shouldn't happen, but it happens sometimes. So you just got to live with it, I guess. Really, I need to rewatch this game to really decide on who I think were the best players. There was a lot of players that were all good and did some bad stuff. Hard to decide, I guess, on one viewing who were the best players. Caldwell had plenty of it. He was really good in the centre for Essendon. For Geelong, probably the best players on first watch were Jack Bales, Ollie Dempsey and Myers. Were all really good. It was interesting to see how the Geelong forward line kind of went, because obviously no Tomahawk for a while, first game out, and then also Ollie Henry also was out this week. So it was interesting to see how that new dynamic worked up there, and on first look it looked really good. They kicked 16 goals, so a really positive result for them in that regard. That's Saturday football done. On to Sunday football. We started with St Kilda, Port Adelaide, under the roof at Marvel Stadium. Probably not the most anticipated game of the weekend, but a game nonetheless. St Kilda went down by 2 points, 8 goals 12-60. Port Adelaide kicked 8 goals 14-62. Power needed this win, no doubt about it. They had dropped down to 8th on the ladder, and things were not in free fall, but just not going great. Obviously, they had a really bad result last week. So to bounce back, big win for them. Great sign. Just good all round in that regard. They were plus 12 in inside 50s, which was probably the most positive sign for them, because the last couple of weeks hadn't been too good in that area, whereas prior to that they had been really good up until then. So positive sign there. Negative sign for Port Adelaide, and something they really need to probably address, is their accuracy. They're 17th in the league on the year, and they're dropping even further, to be honest. It's 4 weeks in a row now that they've kicked more behinds than goals, and that will cost you games, especially towards the pointy end of the season. If you're in finals and you're kicking more behinds than goals, it will cost you big time. Port Adelaide were plus 10 in clearances, so they dominated big chunks and big areas of this game, but only won the game by 2 points, which is a little surprising. But St Kilda turned it into one of their old-fashioned slugfests, which they do tend to do regularly, especially at Marvel Stadium. Saints won the contested footy, which they usually do, and Port Adelaide aren't great at it, so no real surprise there. Best players, Butters kicked a great goal. He had 22 touches and kicked a goal from the centre, which was huge. Marshall, he was the best for the Saints. He kicked 3 out of their 8 goals. He was really good. So that's about all I have to say about this game. Port Adelaide get the points. St Kilda don't. Looking at what that does for the ladder, Port Adelaide just gets them safely in the 8 for another week. They move up 1 spot. They move to 7th on the ladder. 1 game ahead of the Bulldogs, who are 9th. And only, half a game off 3rd on the ladder. So their season's certainly not done. They have areas that they definitely need to work on. But they've arrested their 3 losses in a row. Chance to really push that next week, a massive game. They're playing the Bulldogs. Both teams sitting very close to each other on the ladder. 1 game between them, obviously. Winner of that gets basically a two-win game, because you obviously get your win plus the other team gets a loss. So really, really big game next week for Port Adelaide. That's about all I've got to say about that one. St Kilda, they dropped down to 15th. Their season's done. They can't make finals from here. They would have to win all 8, and that would get them 13 wins, which would probably be enough, but it's just not really feasible. And unfortunately for them, they go up against the Swans this week, who will be keen to bounce back after losing to Fremantle last weekend. Interestingly, or not interestingly, St Kilda just play at Marvel pretty much the rest of the season, except for one road trip, which I think is to Adelaide. So they do have a reasonable run home, but I just don't think it's really feasible. I also think, now that I'm thinking about it, I didn't do a wrap up of Essendon and Geelong's ladder position, so we'll quickly do that. Essendon, that drops them to 4th, still comfortably inside the 8. Their percentage, while a concern for comparisons with Brisbane and Fremantle, they do have the bye, so at least that, not the bye, the draw. So that at least keeps them out of percentage battle with Geelong, Collingwood, Port Adelaide, Bulldogs, and GWS and Gold Coast, who are all well above them in percentage. So that's the one positive for them. But they have only won one game in their last 4, so that kind of needs to tidy up a little bit, but it's not too concerning. Geelong jump up to 5th on the ladder. They needed that win, and they got it. All of a sudden, they play Hawthorn next week in what is a massive game for both teams, and a big chance, you'd have to think, if they win that, to really cement themselves in the finals. However, Hawthorn do have an okay record against Geelong, so that shall be an interesting game, to say the least. 2 more games of football happened on the weekend. Firstly, Richmond v Carlton on Sunday afternoon at the MCG. Obviously, Carlton went into this as heavy favourites, and they kind of lived up to that, I guess. Richmond kicked 10-10-70. Carlton kicked 20 goals, 11, 131. Richmond were competitive, especially the first half. They were only, just over a goal or so down. I think they got within a goal even at one point in the third quarter. But from that point, Carlton just kind of blew them away, which you kind of expect. Carlton are probably the better team. Better fitness, better just running out of games. Their last 5 for the Tigers, though, has been a lot better. They're showing some signs of... I guess it's got a lot to do with the fact that they've got some players back and whatnot, but they at least are competitive throughout games. They ended up losing this one by 61, but that's not the worst result of their season. The last quarter and a half, as I said, Carlton turned it on, which they've been really doing over the last 5-6 weeks. Their final quarters have been outstanding. This one, they did most of their work late in the third. I think they kicked 3 goals in about 3 minutes and 6 goals in the last 10 minutes of the quarter. So really outstanding finish from Carlton, and it's concerning for other teams because that you just keep continually doing this, and somehow, some way, teams are going to have to find a way to stop them because it's very dangerous. The numbers over the last 3 or 4 weeks are really concerning for oppositions. They kicked 13 of the last 16 goals of the match today. So game was on the line, and then they just turned it on. Led mainly by Paddy Cripps, who was outstanding. Their disposal and forward efficiency numbers were really good and have been really good over the last month. So certainly worrying signs for other teams in the competition. They started the season where they were winning the turnover game regularly. They had a bit of a trough there where they started to lose games. They were really struggling in that area. But their last few weeks, they've turned that right around again, and showing that is an area of their game that they're really good at, which is dangerous for everyone. In terms of best players, as I said, Cripps was best on ground. I don't think there's any arguments from anybody on that. He had 40 touches, a goal, 3 goal assists. He was outstanding. Walsh was really good. He had 26 touches, 2 goals. Fantasia kicked 4. Fogarty kicked 3. For once, it was Carlton Smalls that were kicking goals. They still got 2 goals each from Curnow and Mackay, but usually they rely on them a lot more than they did today. So positive signs all round for the Blues. Where does that put these two teams? As we've mentioned, Carlton stays second on the ladder. Two games plus percentage behind Sydney, so basically 3 games. It's very unlikely they would catch up the percentage on Sydney. They've got GWS next week, so big game for them. If they can keep winning, it's hard to see how they won't finish top 2 on the ladder this year. Meanwhile, Richmond, they're 17th on the ladder. I won't say their season's over, but they're just counting down the days really until the end. They probably don't have a whole heap to gain from the rest of the year. But getting some games into the younger players, I guess, is the one positive, and they will continue to do that, and hopefully that puts them in good stead going forward. Game number 9, final game of the round, was West Coast hosting Hawthorn over at Optus Stadium. West Coast kicked 4 goals, 9-33. Hawthorn kicked 14-10, 94. So the Hawks won it by 91 points. Their season just continues to grow. I don't know what to say about this game, to be honest. Probably very close to one of the most dominant games of the season from anyone, to be honest. West Coast, just their numbers were terrible today. It was kind of like their first 3 weeks of the year. If you weren't around back then, I talked a lot about how bad West Coast were in those first few weeks. Up until they played Gather Round, they were showing no signs of anything, and that was kind of what this was. They showed no signs today. Very, very disappointing loss for the Eagles. Hawthorn, meanwhile, only positive signs for them, so great from them. Talk on the Eagles first. They just can't get their hands on the ball. 2 weeks in a row, they've lost uncontested football by a long way. Minus 104 last week against Essendon, minus 115 this week against Hawthorn. Just really, really, really bad. That's as bad as anyone has been in the AFL this year by a long stretch. They need to find a way to win the ball. Obviously, over this season, going into this game, they were minus 41 uncontested footy per game, and it's just getting worse and worse. At some point, they have to find a way to stop opposition players from just having so much uncontested football, because minus 50 occasionally you can survive. Minus 100 regularly, you're not going to win games of football. You're just letting the opposition just control every aspect of the game. Hawthorn, their numbers were great here. Plus 148 disposals, plus 27 inside 50s, plus 17 clearances, plus 24 contested football, plus 115 uncontested football. No negatives really for them at all. The one thing that they struggle, I guess, going into this game is clearances. Massive tick here, plus 17. Also uncontested football, they're not great at. They're minus 9 per game going in. They've pretty much just wiped that off just in this one game by going plus 115. So crazy numbers and domination. They won by 61 Hawthorn, but to be honest, those numbers make it look like they should have won by 100 plus. But nothing but positive signs from Hawthorn. Best players, Dylan Moore was probably their best. 29 touches, 2 goals, 3 goal assists, 11 scoring involvements. He was great. They had plenty of other good players, Newcomb and a couple others, but pretty much every Hawthorn player was just really good. They all did their role, they all did their job, and they got the result that they needed and wanted. So yeah, that's the final game of the round. What that puts both of those teams, obviously West Coast, they're sitting 16th on the ladder. The 2 wins and percentage off the bottom, so I don't think they'll fall to the bottom of the ladder, but based on what we saw today, it's hard to see them winning another game this year. If we're being honest, that was a really, really poor showing. Hopefully they can turn it around. They've got Melbourne next week, which is in Melbourne, so it won't be easy for them. Meanwhile, Hawthorn, they're 13th on the ladder. They don't move up or down, but they do come closer to the top 8. They're now half a game outside the 8, plus percentage, let's be honest. But their percentage is rising fast. So all of a sudden, finals is a chance for them. And you wouldn't want to write them off in any game, but the way they're playing at the moment, they're getting the job done. I got Geelong this week, who certainly they're a chance to beat. If they win that, then the lid is off in Hawthorn. Let me tell you, they will be up and about, if they're not already, which they definitely are. So that's where every team sits after round 16. Some big games, some big results, and yeah, some big results, I guess, for some teams that are really in contention for finals. Have a look at how my tips went on the weekend. It wasn't great. We started okay. We got Brisbane. They didn't win by 32, but we got that one right. Bulldogs won as well, not by 52, but we get it right. We then went on a bit of a form slump on Saturday. We got Sydney wrong. Fremantle knocked them off by a point. We got Collingwood wrong. Gold Coast got them by 11. We got the Giants wrong. Adelaide beat them by 16. We got Essendon wrong. They got done by 45 points by the Cats. So after Saturday, we're just 2 of 6 right and looking terrible. Thankfully, Sunday went kind of as planned. Port Adelaide scraped over the line by 2 points over the Saints. Carlton won by 61 points over Richmond, and then Hawthorn won by 61 points over West Coast. Gave us 5 out of 9 for the week, which wasn't too bad when we got 4 in a row wrong on Saturday. Sits us at 87 of 135 for the year, so nothing outstanding. We kind of have one good week and then we have one really bad week, and that's kind of how the season's gone, but that is what it is. Tipping this year is really tough, in my opinion. I was doing a lot better last year, but that is what it is. Yeah, that's round 16 review wrapped up, done. Thanks for tuning in. Before you leave, don't forget to like, comment, let me know how your team's going. Is your team in the 8? Let me know. Are they going to play finals? Let me know all your thoughts, and also don't forget to smash that subscribe button. All the subscribers, we want them all. We're on our rise. We're slowly growing, but all the help we can get is always appreciated. So yeah, smash that subscribe button. Hit it as hard as you can. In other words, we'll be back with another podcast episode on Friday, which will be episode 38, which will be our round 17 preview episode. Before then, there will be another video going out on YouTube only on Wednesday, so stick around for that. Hopefully will be a banger, something that you'll enjoy. So come back for that, and don't forget to check out all my social medias. Plenty of content all the time over there, especially on TikTok. So go check it all out. Thanks for tuning in. This has been the All Aussie Rules Footy Podcast. I'll catch us on the next one.